It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Are you the go-to sports guru around the water cooler? In just 22 minutes a day, Locked On Sports Today will bring you up to speed with the biggest stories, breaking news, and recaps of last night's action across the sports world with Locked On's local experts. It's the daily sports podcast to make you the sports conversation starter at the water cooler. Stay in the know every day with Locked On Sports Today. Available on Odyssey, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Happy holidays, everybody, and welcome back to your source for fantasy hockey news. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and we are continuing our divisional breakdown of every single team in the NHL by division. Today, we stop at the Metro. This is a spicy division and one that we have to take a close look at. More on today's episode. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to your show. It is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. As always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. It is your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day, and thank you for holding us down throughout the holiday season. Steele and I should still be here feeding you some updates, feeding you the fantasy news that you need. We are going to continue the divisional breakdowns through into next week with the Atlantic Division, so make sure you stay tuned. And if you missed the Western Division's breakdowns, you can go check those out on YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere you get your favorite content. Steele, we are looking at fantasy beasts, fantasy busts. We're breaking down what we thought of the team so far, maybe in relation to what we thought they would do in the preseason. We're also taking a look at division winner odds and our predictions for these teams for the rest of the season. And look, when I take a look at this Metro Division, the bottom of it is what it is, and we can breeze through these Columbus Blue Jackets and Philadelphia Flyer conversation. But then things get very interesting. So why don't we kick it off? Hit me with your take on the Columbus Blue Jackets. I got a couple of quick notes here, and then we can get to the meat and potatoes of this division, which clearly has some Stanley Cup caliber in the top of it.
Yeah, for sure. But these Columbus Blue Jackets, as of right now, 10-20-2 record for 22 points on the season. I expected them to be a little bit better, but you can't really put that much expectations on a team that is riddled with injuries right now. Like, they have been so banged up the entire season. So you can't really expect much out of them. Like, Laine and Gaudreau have been great offensively, but defensively have been garbage, -14 and -6 on the season. Laine was out twice for 2 weeks at a time. Werenski's out for the season. Voracek's out for the season, I think. Jake Bean's on the IR. Korpisalo's on the IR. Jenner's on the IR. Sillinger's on the IR. So, like, there's just so many injuries for the Columbus Blue Jackets right now that they've had to deal with the entire season. And you just can't really get going when you have to deal with pretty much your entire NHL roster out, on the IR right now. So it is what it is with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Expected a little bit better, but you can't do much with all these injuries.
Gaudreau, clearly the standout beast for me, even if you want to do quote unquote on that on beast, because 10 goals, 24 assists, 34 points is 34 points, but he has 0 power play goals. I would expect a lot more out of him just in leading the team overall. And I know that's not a fantasy stat, but look, he is the standout. There's been a lot of disappointments on this team, Steele, and injuries are not a player's fault. But even a guy like Cole Sillinger, before he got hurt, I was expecting a lot more out of him. He was a good dark horse pick by a lot of fantasy cats to have a big year. The injury is the injury. He's been disappointing. But look, very quickly, second worst in goals against per game. They allow 4 goals a game. Shots against, over 35 a game. And they have the second worst power play unit. So when you're allowing that many goals and shots and you can't score on the power play, you're going to be in 8th place in your division. That's where they are, just behind the Philadelphia Flyers only by 7 points. The
Yeah.
Flyers have been a better team, though, Steele. And I want to take 2 players out that have been very beastly for them fantasy-wise. I have a feeling you're going to mention Kevin Hayes because he has been good. Travis Konecny has been just as good. 30 points for Konecny as well, 9 power play goals. He also has over 40 penalty minutes. He plays with an edge. I got to show some love to Travis Konecny, one of my favorite players on this team.
Yeah, those are the 2 guys that have been the beast, even if you call them beasts for this club right now. But guys like Joel Farabee, Scott Lawton, huge disappointments. Even on the blue line, Tony DeAngelo, Ivan Provorov have just not been good enough for this team. But I had the Flyers. I picked the Flyers to be dead last in this division by the end of the season. Obviously, with all these injuries to Columbus, that's probably not going to be the case. They'll probably finish exactly in second last where they're at. But I didn't have much expectations for this team heading into the season. I think, honestly, they're a little bit of a joke right now, more specifically targeted towards John Tortorella. I don't like him as a head coach in the NHL. I think he has a very terrible mindset. And, just the organization itself, like even the general manager, Chuck Fletcher, has done a terrible job since he's joined the club back in 2018. I didn't like
for sure.
Yeah, I didn't like the signing of John Tortorella as the head coach. I just don't think his game or his style of coaching is made for a team that is going under a rebuild right now. And you can see that, especially when he's healthy scratched Kevin Hayes. Like, how the heck do you healthy scratch your team leading point scorer for no reason? And, around the league, that's the case where apparently he just, wherever he goes, he picks one guy, a big guy who doesn't do like the little things that he likes, and he just bullies them. And that's what I've seen wherever he goes. And look, I think they're a little bit of a joke right now, but on the upside, Morgan Frost on the top line with JVR. He's got 4 goals, 7 points in his last 6 games. So it seems that the kid's going right now. So maybe a little bit of a sneaky ad once we come back from break.
Very quickly. And, today's episode, we got no big time bets, people. This is a Saturday Christmas Eve special. Much love to everyone out there listening on a Saturday. We hope you're getting your fantasy fix. Like we said, Steele and I are going to be here throughout the holidays, feeding you more fantasy news. When games are back next week, we will have big time bets back. But today we're just hitting you with the Metro Division. So thank you for being here. But look, John Tortorella not also answering the question of why. And when Kevin Hayes came back, I thought was such a huge cop-out. And being a journalist in the past and being in some of those scrums, that was a fair question. You benched, you shelved your best player so far offensively. You have to answer. Fans deserve to know why your hottest player.
Over and over again. Every single time he's in a conference with the media, he doesn't answer questions and he starts bullying them. That's what he does. That's what he does as a head coach. That's what he does.
I'm not here for it, Steele. I'm not here for bullies and on or off the ice, so I'm not here for it either. But very quickly before we move on, because we spent way too much time on this Philadelphia team, because the rest of this Metro is spicy. Carter Hart deserves some love at 10-10-0. 10-10-6, 2.87 goals against and a 911 save percentage. He started the year off hot. He deserves some honorable mention as a top standout fantasy piece. Let's move on to the New York Islanders very quickly. And again, this is where things get interesting, Steele, because the 6th through 1st spot are only separated by 10 points in this division. Things are going to get very tight and down to the wire, and that's going to leave at least 1 or 2 really good teams on the outside looking in. You and I have said what we've said about the Capitals, and we're going to get there in a second. 38 points for the Islanders so far this season. Big season from Ilya Sorokin. But it's really that's impressed me is up top is Brock Nelson and Matt Barzal. 2 really good offensive seasons for 2 young players. Maybe Brock Nelson not so young anymore. But they are 8th in goals against per game. They have the 7th best penalty kill. But where they're hurting is on power play. 21st best in the NHL. I think if they can sort that out, Steele, this is going to be a tough team and one that I expect to be right there on the cusp.
Yeah, and even before the season started, you and I think both agreed that the Atlantic Division was probably the strongest heading into the season with what Ottawa and Detroit did in the offseason. But at this point, it has to be the Metropolitan Division as the strongest competitors in the league right now. You're right. Led by Brock Nelson, having a career year right now, 33 points on the season. Barzal right behind him, 5 goals. He's starting to get that scoring touch a little bit more, but he's just an assist machine who helps facilitate the offense for these New York Islanders. But, Noah Dobson has been a huge key piece of this organization as well this season.
I love me some Noah Dobson.
Being that top defender that can jump in offensively, something they really needed over the last few seasons as well. And even Pajot, 18 points on the season. He does all those peripheral stats. Anders Lee having a bounce back season after that scary injury a few years ago. For me, the biggest letdown has been Beauvillier.
Me too, man.
I think it's been about time. He's 25 years old. Only has 13 points. They expect more. We expect more from Beauvillier. I've seen flashes of offensive touch to his game, but overall, having 13 points in 33 games or 34 games on the season is not good enough. I could say the same thing about Wahlstrom, but he's only 22 years old. He has been better than Beauvillier, so there is still more time for development and improvement. But I actually think I heard a rumor that Beauvillier might be out, and it could be a key piece in a trade deadline acquisition.
I could definitely see it. He feels like one of those players, and you and I have talked about players who could benefit from a change of scenery or a player who could benefit from a change of franchise. Same kind of thing, but he is right there on the top of my list. I don't understand. He's got all the tools to do it. 52 points last season in 79 games, starting to get there. I think 50 to 60 is very in this player's wheelhouse. And this season, so far, I think he could be doing a lot more. I think I'm getting his numbers really wrong, actually, here. I'm looking at the wrong player, so that's my bad. I was looking at Konecny's numbers. But anyway, the point remains. He has been a disappointment. He is not actually topped out at that many points. That's wrong. But anyway, you know me with the numbers, Steele. Beauvillier, bust for me so far. 5th place, Washington Capitals. 40 points on the season. You and I need to eat a little bit of hat here because we have been all over this Washington team, but I'm going to make a point right here very quickly. When you look into their numbers, both ends of the ice, and this one I'm sure of, they are pretty average at both sides. Yeah. They are 12th best on the penalty kill, 20th best on the power play, and I understand 12th best PK is in the top half of the league. They are pretty average in the rest of the goals and against department. And it really has been Alex Ovechkin and this OV magic that has been carrying this team. And when you look down the lineup, they lack goal scoring. They lack any kind of depth. And John Carlson has been my bust on the season so far. 71 points last year and only 20 so far this season. He needs to be better because clearly the beast of this team is number 8.
Yeah, but that's what we sort of expected with all of the changes to this organization over the last year. Starting off the season, no Nicholas Backstrom, out for the season with that back injury. Tom Wilson not able to go at the start of the season. We knew that it was going to be a different look for these Washington Capitals, but nonetheless, John Carlson does need to be a little bit better. My preseason prediction for these Washington Capitals is exactly where they are right now. I had them finishing in 5th place in the Metropolitan Division. I still think they could be a bubble team. I had them finishing with 95 points on the season. They currently have 40 points as of right now heading into the Christmas break. So this is exactly where I place them. Again, one of those bubble teams, but you're right, led by their captain, Alexander Ovechkin. I think the tandem in net has been very surprising. Charlie Lindgren, we got to show some kudos to him.
Yeah, we were wrong there as well.
Wrong there, but Kemper's been great. He just come back from injury and get a 3-2 victory over the Ottawa Senators. I think there's some guys down the lineup that you could look at as well on the blue line. Eric Gustafsson, Nick Jensen have looked decent as depth or bottom tier defensemen for the Capitals. Milano has 15 points in 22 games. I talked about Sheary and Mantha. So yeah, they're average, but there is some value to their bottom 6 and bottom 4 defense and forwards.
We haven't mentioned odds yet to win the division because they haven't been relevant until now, unless you're willing to sprinkle a $30,000 odd on the Blue Jackets or the Philadelphia Flyers. But look, this is when it starts to get a little interesting here, Steele.
Yes.
Plus 3,000 for the Islanders, plus 3,300 for the Capitals, and we're going to get to the Rangers in a second. But let me hit you with this. What I look at when I look at this Washington Capitals team is just the lack of clutch scoring punch. And as much as the Manthas, Stromes of the world, they get you that offensive value, peripheral assists and whatnot, no one here is clutch except for Ovi. I don't know if he can get it done on his own. And this is the team that I expect to fall back down to earth after what's been a very overachieving start, in my opinion. But hey, we got to still pay these bills, Steele. We got to still talk about our friends at betonline.net, because that is where Steele and I get all of our lines and odds every single day. Your number one source for sports betting info and news and analysis this season. Get the latest odds and trends for every pro and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to the NBA. They have it covered for you at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, just like you like the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast, you can find even more of those at BetOnline as well, where they are always the fastest and easiest way for you to get your betting info. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. That's BetOnline, where the game starts.
Are you the go-to sports guru around the water cooler? Do you want to be? In just 22 minutes a day, Locked On Sports Today will bring you up to speed with the biggest stories, breaking news, and recaps of last night's action across the sports world with Locked On's local experts. It's the daily sports podcast to make you the sports conversation starter at the water cooler. Stay in the know every day with Locked On Sports Today. Available on Odyssey, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts.
Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast your first listen every single day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. The biggest stories of the day, instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And let's continue on the conversation of the teams in this Metropolitan Division. Just finished talking about the Washington Capitals. Once we get to the top four teams in the Metro, that's where it gets really interesting for me, because the New York Rangers sitting in fourth right now, 19-11-5 record for 43 points, a plus 650 odds to win this division. And I think that is worth the sprinkle of admission for the New York Rangers at plus 650 to win this division. I don't think it's out of reach. You know, if they continue to play like they have the past 10 games, for the rest of the season, I think it's very, very possible for this team to finish in first in the Metro. And for me, this really comes down to their backup goaltender, Halak. I spoke about this a couple of episodes ago. Whenever he has entered the crease, it just seems like they completely give up. Like, it just seems like they're not their typical offensive-minded, helping their goaltenders in the defensive zone type of New York Rangers that I've seen in the past. And yeah, Halak is just, I don't want to put the entire blame on Halak. He hasn't been good, but again, he's let in some weak goals, but they just haven't helped him enough offensively to win those games. Like, they lost to Chicago, they lost to the Ducks, they lost to Columbus when he was in net, a few other games in there as well, but it's just not good enough. Eh? Yeah, stinkers. He's 2-6-1 on the season, needs to be a lot better, but other than Halak, for me, the real busts have been the kids, Lafreniere and Kakko.
Yeah. I have that. Yeah. It's right here.
Being the first overall pick in your third season, and especially being so dominant in your junior career, as well as Kakko being a second overall pick in the first round, you expect a little bit more from these guys.
Agreed.
And it just hasn't panned out. Like, at some point, they got to stop being the kids and start being the men. Like, they're going to have to, they're going to have to take over at some point. And, I sent you that mock trade a little bit ago of potentially the Rangers and the Chicago Blackhawks making a trade for Kane. He might be a part of that. It's just a mock draft. It's just up in the air. It's a mock trade, but nonetheless, they haven't been good enough. 17 points, 15 points, not good enough.
Yeah, no, for sure. They were my bust as well. This Rangers team, 7th in goals against per game. They have the 13th best power play. They started slow. They're coming on hot. When they started the season off on a tear, it was their power play getting it done at an elite level, and they have the elite pieces and the ability. You've mentioned, I think it was Zibanejad and Panarin being able to find themselves like in the parking lot. That's how much chemistry they have when they pass each other the puck. That's what this team needs to do when they need to really click. It's that power play. And I think if they can continue to creep the 13th best, they're better than that. They're top 5, if not better. I think this team's going to go as far as the special team. Obviously, Shesterkin carries them. Yeah. But Shesterkin is right there as the beast, aside from Panarin with 40 points for me for this team so far, fantasy-wise. But Shesterkin is getting better, and he's only 16, 5-4. Like, he's still having a great year, 2.42 goals against and almost a 920 save, and he's not even close to how good we know he can be. Don't sleep on this Rangers team. You know, Steele and I have talked way too much about this team. Also, at MGM right now, you're getting them at plus 1,100 for the division, Steele. Plus 1,100 for the division. If you're looking at them
That's
around,
pretty good.
Did you say 650?
Yeah, I believe they were at 650 the last time.
You can definitely get some better odds out there too, because that is something I might be sprinkling on for sure, because they're not even close to getting to how good they can be. That's what I think.
That's what I think too. That's what I'm definitely sprinkling some on them to win the division.
Thank you.
Some good odds right now. They're not far fetched out of it. Like you said, once we get to the top, the good 6 teams in this division, it's real close. I know the Hurricanes are up there and they're leading the way, but there's a lot of teams chasing their tails right now.
Today feels almost incomplete because we are doing a holiday special. Again, thank you for tuning in. We're going to get to the top 3 teams in the Metro Division here. Odds, beasts, and busts. It feels weird not to throw to big-time bets as well because there are no games, so we're going to just focus on the divisional breakdown. Stay tuned for tomorrow's episode, should I say Monday's episode, where we're going to get to the Atlantic Division and those fantasy beasts and busts as well. But Steele, Pittsburgh Penguins. I think, look, we've now been doing this. We're very close to our 1-year anniversary. Shout out to all the listeners. But I come on here a lot, and we say a lot of the same things. And I think I've said a lot about Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins, but it's now all coming to fruition. They are playing some really good hockey. And if it not for how amazing Sidney Crosby is this season, Tristan Jarry is easily the beast of this team for me. He has been sensational, and he is creeping into that Vezina conversation. 15, 3, and 4 this season. 1 shutout, 2.67 goals against, and a .920 save percentage. He has been almost as good, if not better, than the Shesterkins of the world. This guy needs a little bit more credit on his name, and the Pittsburgh Penguins are very much alive in this division with 43 points sitting in 3rd place.
Yeah, and it's absolutely crazy to even see that they're in 3rd place at this point in the season, because if we can't forget, they were on a 7-game losing streak back in October, November at the time. Point. So, as of right now, they're 19-9-5 for 43 points in 33 games. Like you said, Crosby, 43 points in 33 games. A little bit of a sidebar. I truly believe at the end of his career, Crosby could finish at top 5 points. He's only 346 points away from Ron Francis for top 5 in points by the end of his career. So sidebar, but even Gensel, like I have Gensel in 2 of my fantasy teams right now. He has 33 points on the season, and I feel like I haven't seen or heard enough of him. A very sneaky good
I think he's just getting there too, Steele. I think he's got a lot more in the tank this season.
A lot more in the tank. We're going to see a lot more highlights from Jake Gensel. And what about this coming from the Metro? 4 of the top 10 teams in goals against come from this Metropolitan Division. So that just speaks to how great the goaltenders and the defensive capabilities of these top 4 teams in the Metro have been so far this year.
Great point. And when it comes to me discussing teams that I think can get it done in the playoffs, penalty kill and power play. Special teams is what really butters your bread, other than maybe a hot goaltender. Those are the pieces that you need to go on a run. This is the 3rd best penalty kill. Say what you will about the offense. 7th best goals per game at almost 3.5. Also good. They are good on the defensive end. So thank you for making that point. And this is an interesting little kind of caveat with this team. Not one that you maybe expected coming into this season. Their blue line is underrated, but Brian Rust has been a bit of a disappointment for me. I had him on the list. He's been better lately. I think he has 6 points in his last 7 games. So that's tough to say he's been a bust, because he is now back up to 21 points. So it was hard to pick a bust, because now these top 3 teams we're looking at here, the Devils, Hurricanes, and Penguins, have all been very, very good. So why don't we get to those Devils? Plus 400 for the Penguins to win the division. It's going to be tough. But that might be worth a 20 spot.
Could be worth it. Not sure if we want to put any money on these Devils anymore for winning this division at this point. But, hey, at this point, still a great season. They've been pretty bad the last 10 games. 2 points back, but the last 10 games, I believe they're 3-5-2. So it's been a bad 10-game stretch. Nonetheless, 22-9-2 on the season for 46 points in 33 games. Obviously started red hot, had a 13-game winning streak going. I don't think anyone saw this New Jersey Devils teams coming this year to be at first in the Metropolitan. Now in second, not this good. it's just it's crazy. And for me, I think my fault. I know my fault was. Look, I had the Devils finishing second last in the division. I think a lot of teams didn't have them making the playoffs or even a bubble team, but I had them finishing second last, and I put all of that on Hughes and Hischier getting injured. That's what I thought was going to happen because that's what's happened in the past. And
that's what
I thought. Yeah, look, I thought they were going to get injured at some point in the first 2 months. Obviously, thank God they didn't, and I hope they remain healthy for the remainder of the season because they're great for the game, and they need to be healthy for this Devils team to even have any success. But this came out of left field. No one saw this Devils team being this good. And for me, the joke of the team, the bust of the team, has been Damon Severson. He's been awful.
100%.
6 points on the season.
46 points last season.
You and I were so high on this guy heading, even last year when we started the podcast.
Yep. And he was good last year. He's 27, 28 years old. He's in his prime right now. Yep. It seemed like he was finally making that next step. And, they did, I know the Devils made some trades to acquire some guys on the blue line like John Marino and Dougie Hamilton over the last few years, whatnot. But still, to only have 6 points at this point in the season is just not good enough. So for anyone who drafted him or is still holding on to him, I'm very sorry for you. Yeah, that's one you should have let go a while ago because also the comeback and coming back to the lineup of Dougie Hamilton almost has seen Severson feel like he can step back from that offensive piece that he needed to be for the team with Hamilton out. It's almost like, it's played with him a little bit, Steele, but
yeah.
This team goes through Jack Hughes, 38 points. I think you and I had a top 5 list of guys 23 and under, and I had Hughes maybe at number 1, and you gave me some heat. He's backed me up this season, but the caveat you mentioned, it's the injury front. So far, so good. This team is going to hover around the top of this division as long as they continue to score goals. Jesper Bratt, Hischier, Mercer, even some role guys doing okay this season, and Thomas Tatar. Let's see what the rest of this season holds, Steele, because I have my eye on this team. 2nd in shots per game. They get a lot of shots. 8th in goals per game. They score a lot. But on the defensive end this season has been impressive, man. 3rd best goals against per game at 2.52. They are also good defensively. Let's see what happens. Vitek Vanacek playing spotty. Mackenzie Blackwood starting to take some more of that crease time back. That's one of those areas fantasy-wise with this team, Steele, you got to keep your eye on.
Yeah, and actually, I wanted to ask you this question, too. Vanacek just became available in one of my hockey leagues. Do I go out there and,
I don't know.
Right now, I have Talbot and Kemper. So, I'm thinking maybe drop Talbot for Vanacek, but not quite sure what to do. Maybe we'll get into Monday's episode or maybe a different episode, talk about some pickups.
He's on a 4-game losing streak right now, Steele, but let's talk about it on another episode because let's finish this episode up with the bow right here with I talked a lot about this Hurricanes team as my favorite other than the Rangers, and everyone for good reason should be doing the same. That's not a hot take. That's just looking at this division on paper, Hurricanes and Rangers. That's what it was last season. That's what I think it's going to shake down to this season. Those are going to be the top 2 teams. We've said what we will about the Devils. We've said what we will about the Caps, maybe fading. I think this is the Hurricanes and Rangers division, and so far it has been the Hurricanes, 48 points, and they are stingy defensively. I'm not even going to go into my Kochetkov talk because I've been there all day. I'm not trying to bore you people. I'm trying to feed you with what you need. 4th in shots per game, but they are also 1st in shots against per game allowed, 26. They only allow 26 shots per game on average. That's impressive, and they are 5th in goals against per game. They are getting it done by committee, Steele. I couldn't even necessarily pick out a fantasy beast number 1, one clear fantasy beast. Svechnikov had a good season. Nakash having a good season. Aho maybe could be a little bit better, but still 27 points in 26 games. They've been getting it done by committee, and that's what maybe is the most impressive thing with this team.
If you're not going to talk about Kochetkov, I will, because this kid is
I've done enough talking about Kochetkov.
You have. So I'll take it from take it from here.
Please do.
Worries. Kochetkov has been unreal, and I'm not even kidding when I say this. We could possibly see Kochetkov win the Calder Trophy and the Vezina Trophy this season. That will be the first time since 1991 Ed Belfour with the Chicago Blackhawks.
He's shout out to the Eddie the Gambler.
He has been that good. I know he hasn't played as many games as guys like Linus Allmark or Connor Hellebuck or Ilya Sorokin. I know that. Yeah. But look at his record right now. Look at his stats.
I'm looking at it.
Second in goals against this year, 1.94 goals against. Tied second for save percentage, a .928 save percentage, and tied for first with 3 shutouts on the season. Unbelievable what he's been able to do since being called up to the NHL. Absolutely nasty. But you're right. For me, the huge force, the beast on the team, besides Kochetkov, has been Necas. Absolutely beautiful season he's having, continuing another great season from last year. A great add in Brent Burns. Sneaky good player. A great add in Brent Burns. Pacioretty, not near return yet, but once he does get into the lineup, this is going to be a scary Carolina Hurricanes team.
Steele, thank you for bringing up Pacioretty, and he is nearing a return. He's been at practice in the non-contact jersey. He is going to be back in January as projected at some point, maybe near the end, because he is a veteran player. But that's almost what this team maybe needs right now, because they have all of these awesome young players getting it done, a blue line that just seems to also get it done by committee. All of these things, Steele, and now you have a hot goaltender. You know how much I love these pieces. This is how you ride a wave of success through the playoffs. This Carolina Hurricanes team is built for a cup run, and I think they're going to go on one. I'm also excited, though, to talk about the Atlantic Division on Monday's episode. That's going to be interesting as well. Also, odds to win the division, very lastly, -105, the clear favorite right now. Even though the top 6 teams are only separated by 10 points, Steele. So that says something about what Vegas odds makers think of this Carolina team. I'll spit out these words, I promise.
They are the favorites in this Metropolitan Division for good reason, but you're right. It's the Rangers and Hurricanes division at this point. They will be up for first and second at the end of the season. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love and support. Make sure you stay tuned for Monday's episode of the Atlantic Division Rewind. We break down all the teams as well, 8 through 1. We'll get down to the nitty-gritty, the top 3 teams, the Bruins, the Maple Leafs, and the Lightning. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Have a great Christmas and New Year. And we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Peace.
Are you the go-to sports guru around the water cooler? Do you want to be? In just 22 minutes a day, Locked On Sports Today will bring you up to speed with the biggest stories, breaking news, and recaps of last night's action across the sports world with Locked On's local experts. It's the daily sports podcast to make you the sports conversation starter at the water cooler. Stay in the know every day with Locked On Sports Today. Available on Odyssey, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts.